What's up, everyone? I am here with the stars of Don't Breathe, Stephen, Jane, Danny. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. All right, so I saw this movie a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still thinking about it because I think it plays on many different fears that are pretty universal, even though there's very specific fears. You know, one is fear of the dark. One is the fear of home invasion. And then there are other fears that we can't get into because of spoilers, but did you guys respond to that and the script, the sort of, it's a multi-tier fear in a way. Mm-hmm. Was that kind of something that was evident to you in the script and that drew you to it?
Well, what drew me to the script, I tend to start looking at character immediately. And I love the silence with this role. I love the fact that he was called the blind man. Right away, I was just attracted to that. You know, I like anybody whose first name is the. And then as the read proceeded, I just got deeply into his situation. You know, which his pain, his suffering, and the way, and his solitude, and his resilience and fortitude. I just found this is a really interesting character to go to, and the story itself continually surprised me.
I was struck. You know, I forgot about the song. You say like 6 words for the first 40 minutes of the movie. It's you know, and we can get to that because I had some specific kind of acting questions. But what were when you guys were reading it? What were the sort of the elements, or the at least when it comes to fear, that really struck you about this one?
I find the idea of being in someone else's home while they are there, but they don't know you're there, very scary. When Stephen's character sits up for the first time, when Daniel's character is in his room, it's so terrifying for both people. You don't want to be either of them in that moment. And yeah, that to me, home invasion for me is actually my greatest fear, someone also coming into my house while I'm sleeping.
What about you? What were the elements that really grabbed you when you read in that script? You're like, okay, I got to do this.
I don't know. I was really surprised. I mean, obviously, I was a fan of Fede's work before, so that was an attractor for me, working with someone like him. And also, for me, it was also, you know, the character, which is something that Stephen was talking about. Like, it was an opportunity to play something that I hadn't done before, and it was also somebody that was a little bit further away from what I usually do. So all those things were attractors to me. But it was also really cool to kind of like dive yourself into this world of like being in someone's space and not, like, what would you do? Like, how would you act? And yesterday we were talking a little bit about this and how people usually go into houses and they're so scared that they literally shit their pants. So, you know, and it's all like a psyche that you have to work on when you go into someone's house. So that was something that attracted me to the project as well.
Well, one of the things that really just struck me watching the movie, and it's evident too from the trailer, but you really have to immerse yourself in the full narrative to get it, which is, and Fede does just a remarkable job with this, is playing on audience sympathy and playing on anybody who's the good guy ostensibly in any other movie. You question them here. It's particularly with your character, like, maybe you can elaborate on this a bit, but your character basically has, you know, a laundry list of check marks that seem like in the good guy column, but there's a wrinkle there. Can you talk a little bit about that and playing with audiences' sympathies towards your character?
Well, I mean, he certainly, I think he is a master, Fede is a master way beyond his years at this point in terms of manipulating an audience's emotions. And I don't mean manipulating in kind of a Machiavelli way, but in doing it in a real filmmaker's way, you know? And he's done it by creating complex people. Certainly the blind man is there, as you say, there are many positives to the guy, but every positive in his life has been kind of broken in front of him and thrown in his face. And what we're left with, what you meet, is a man who is, I think, deeply embittered and really teetering on the edge of an abyss. But even in that darkness, the thing that we won't talk about,
Right.
that he's doing, when you think about it in his own twisted way, is a life-affirming thing. And to me, what that means is it bespeaks sadness.
Yeah.
It just talks about how really, really sad he is, and I think that operates on an audience. I think it produces empathy, and it produces sympathy, even as you're absolutely horrified by it. You know, and I think each of the characters has has their own agenda, their own story. Not as extreme, but then again, he's so much older. He's been so much more brutal, but they're all brutalized. This is a story of 4 people just trying to survive in a very, very destroyed, decayed, declining environment, it seems to me.
Well, particularly with your characters too. I mean, you're just by virtue of following you right from the beginning, you know, the audience's sympathy is with you. But one of the things I like about the film is that core sort of flaw, the greed or the desperation, it never leaves, even at the worst moments, you know, and not to get into spoilers, but there are just moments where your character could go left, but I still got to go right. And I love that about the film. Was that, I would imagine, for an actor, you want to sink your teeth into those moments, you know?
Yes. Rocky is totally unapologetic. And that was something Fede said to me throughout shooting. He had this funny note, but he meant it like, you know, she's not a damsel in distress, but he would say, you're Bruce Willis. Think of yourself as Bruce Willis. You know, you're scared, but you're strong, and you're going to get through this on your own. You know, I mean, she is helped and is using these boys, I think. I mean, they're friends, but, you know, she has her agenda. And yeah, I really like that about her character. The other thing I think about the hero villain roles that are warped in this story, something that it does to the audience is it makes them have anxiety because they don't know who to hold on to, you know, like, and it switches. They're like, is this character my eyes or is this one? And because they don't have like that raft, it makes it even scarier on top of the suspense that's already happening.
Right. Well, it also too, I mean, it makes the viewer, when you're not certain who to sympathize with, no character is safe either. So
Right.
it works in that, and it takes somebody like a Fede to kind of pull that off, because other lesser filmmakers could screw up and maybe go too much in one thing. But when you were, you know, when you look at your character, do you see a good person making a bad decision? Do you see a bad guy with good instincts, or what do you think?
Well, I've been called a douchebag and an ass a lot of interviews, and that's cool. And that's cool because I think, and you know, we're all good and bad people. We all have good qualities and bad qualities, and I think obviously the characters are in a world where they want something better. They want a bigger opportunity. They want to get out of Detroit. And I think, you know, throughout the script, like you were saying, there's certain decisions that you can go left or right. And it happens to me in that very last moment, you know what I mean? Like, I could go left and be like, oh, there's 3 of us, and, you know, trying to save my own ass. But he takes the route of like, you know what? I brought them here, you know, so that could be a little bit of his redeeming quality. So I think there's many ways to see somebody's story. You know, there's a lot of different points of view.
Well, not to get into spoilers, but your decision with the dog, for like an audience member, you're like, I like that guy.
Right?
Now,
you don't want to kill the dog.
Right. And I'm like, oh, they're going to go there. Well, maybe they will. You know?
Yeah.
But in a weird way, maybe you should.
Yeah.
But, you know, were you, and I know it's tough to do this with, you know, studio people right here, but were you a little shocked that they gave away your character's fate in the trailer?
Yeah, I was. You know, I do understand why it happened, and I think it's such a great film that, yeah, you know, my death is a part of it, of course, but there's so many twists and turns in the movie, And people are going to see the trailer and be like, why did they spoil it? Because usually when they show that in a movie that is not so good as ours, that's a big surprise. But in all actuality, like when I look at it in the big picture, and I was able to see the film yesterday, it's such a good film that little part is so little in the film. There's so many twists that you're never expecting. So yeah, I was a little bit bummed, but it's not a big
But
deal.
I think there's a lot of like really timeless things about this movie. I was watching it and I'm like, you could have made this movie in the 40s or 50s too. It wouldn't have been as elaborate with some of the stuff, but like, it's definitely like, it's pretty timeless, and it's got some like old school kind of qualities. You know, it's not something where you needed CG to be able to pull it off or anything like that. Were you guys, let's talk a little bit about the house of the blind man, because I know it's almost a cliche to say like, well, the setting's also a character. But in this case, it really is. I mean, that house, first of all, who builds a house like that?
Neiman Marshall.
You know, you could, if I saw that thing on the market, I'd be like, I don't know if I want to buy this place.
Well, but the
Creepy
house
people.
itself, if you go, you know, the neighborhood in Detroit where that house is a block, and blocks and blocks and blocks, full of houses that are every bit as solidly built as that house is. And the sadness there is you're talking about these houses were built to last. They're there, and yet they're all gone. They're all empty. They're shells. They're caverns. They're just skeletons of what they were. And that's why Detroit is such a wonderful setting for this film.
really, yeah,
and you know, in many ways, it really operates as a metaphor for everything that's going on with all of us, as well as a very concrete reality. So, but I don't mean to. Since you talk about the house, the most important relationship that I have in the film is with the house, both as a character and as an actor, because the house, my ability to negotiate my way through that house with real facility and speed and efficiency and economy, if I need to move through that house like a shark, by doing that, I do two things. Number one, it helps to sell the blindness, just by moving in those very direct lines. And the other thing is that it establishes my master of the universe, of my own little universe, which is absolutely crucial to establish, I think, in the thing. So I'm very fond of that house.
Were you guys given an opportunity to sort of, particularly since there is that, we could talk about this a little bit, the sequence that is set purely in the dark, like, did you get like sort of lead time to sort of like feel the set and understand kind of your way around it, or were you, pardon the pun, but were you kind of thrown in blind, like, here we are today, this is the set, like, how did that work?
Well, when we were shooting it, it's not totally dark, and I could see in front of me. So what Fede did is he put Dylan and I in a completely blackened room with obstacles in our way, and shot us on night vision, making our way through the space, and then sent us the footage so we could be familiar with what it looks like when you are trying to find your way in pitch dark. And so then we imitated it for those scenes.
Wow.
And we were wearing blacked out contacts to make our pupils look dilated, which is a pretty genius
That's really
touch.
clever, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, they must have really shot that on night vision.
I'm
so-
glad we sold it. That was fun.
Wow. Now, with the, I just wanted to talk a little bit about actually the fight scene that you and Steven have, which we see a taste of in the trailer. Tell us a little bit about filming that. I understand, like, you know, look, you guys have to really sell it. This is the first actual hint of violence in the movies, that connection. So what sort of freedom did you guys feel with each other to sort of like just go there, you know?
Do you remember that?
I remember doing it. I remember we approached it with delicacy. I think because it's a delicate situation, anything can happen there, and it became clear to me. It was clear even to a blind man that the guy holding the gun on me was not a guy who was used to firing guns. I could feel a reluctance to fire. If you're going to shoot somebody, you don't say I'm going to shoot. You shoot them. That's the way it works. That's a law. That's an eternal truth. So I don't believe he is. But at the same time, anything can happen, And so the approach was, the stakes were very high because I feel that they've discovered something that I can't have them discover. And somehow the evolution for me was just to kind of go at it almost in a prayerful way, to as if I were really, you know, kind of begging him, and then to kind of spring the trap. And then fighting with Danny too, because he's very strong, very wiry and very, very strong. So that also required a lot of cooperation on both of our parts, because, you know, he had to allow me to dominate, and sometimes not such an easy thing for an actor to do in a way.
No, it was fun. I think we shot that, Steven. I think it was like 2 days of that.
And it was your last 2 days, wasn't it?
It was like like my last, because we kind of shot all that in sequence. So, but you know what, like working with someone like Steven, you know, it's for someone like me, you know what I mean, he's been doing this for so long, and he kind of like just made me feel very comfortable, and we both allowed ourselves to just go for it in a way, not make it like a pretending of sorts, just, you know, if he needs to choke me, then go ahead and choke me for a little bit.
Well, it looked real.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was asking about.
Yeah,
Like,
and it was real, and I think it was worth it 100%.
Yeah.
And then by the end, he kind of asked me if I was wearing pads, and I said no. But I learned my lesson. Next time I'll wear a pad or two.
and you're like, good. And then,
yeah,
no, you didn't.
yeah, it was all worth it.
Let's talk about working with Fede, because, you know, for our audience, I feel like they discovered him with Evil Dead, and you worked with him on that. He's got, and I told you guys this before we started filming, but he seems like he's got a wonderfully demented imagination. What's he actually like working with, kind of one-on-one? Is he just like kind of like Mr. Normal, and then he just pulls out this crazy idea, or is he kind of an intense dude, or like what's he actually like working with as an actor-director relationship?
He's actually like really nice and normal. He's like a great piano player. He has a beautiful wife, a beautiful child, and he's like excited to come to work. Everyone's excited to work for him. And then the
Then he
twisted
realizes
stuff.
what he's going to put you through, and you know.
Yeah, but he's not a
Yeah.
sinister guy in any way.
Okay. And what about you know, what do you guys actually look for in a director? Because there are a lot of, you know, I feel like for lay people, you know, they don't quite understand perhaps the director-actor relationship as well as maybe they should. I think, you know, a lot of people might think, oh, they just tell you where to go stand, and it's not like that. What is it that you specifically really look for in a director, and what does Fede kind of capture from that?
I tend to phrase it a little bit differently than that, because if you're looking for specific things from a director, you may or you may not find them. What I tend to do is I try to suss out with a director what a director can do for me, or how I can get the most out of this relationship, because there are as many types of different directors, different approaches, as there are interviewers or actors or anything else. And because some directors are far more vocal, far more collaborative, less dictatorial, whatever. And you know what? It all works for me, as long as I kind of understand how to deal with it, you know? There's not just one way for me to do my job. So with Fede, I found him to be, the fact that he wrote this thing, that is important. He has a vision for this world. The fact that from a very, very early stage, say the get-go, I trusted him completely. I trusted that vision he had for the story. That's important. It's vital, you know, that contract, that unwritten contract. And he worked in a very micro way with us. He'd get down, and you need to, you know, shorten up on that punch. You need to drop your chin. If you angle your chin 2 inches that way, the light's going to glint. It's better. Do that. That's very, very. There are some actors who would have a very hard time working that way. Who's, you know, dude, you know, it's not organic, and blah 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 blah. But it's all about what's happening through that lens. And at the same time, he's extremely collaborative. He wanted to be surprised. He wanted us to bring what we brought to it. So, you know, I find him to be, I think it's really early in a career, and you're not doing anybody a favor, I think, when you hang the label master on them. But I do think that Fede is on his way to being a really, really master director. He's really, really good right now. That's my take. Jane's worked with him twice, so obviously there's a strong relationship.
Yeah, was
there.
it a sort of better shorthand with each other this time?
Yeah, there's total shorthand. He really respects actors. I'm sure most good directors do. But it's nice because, like, I agree with everything Steven said, but he is open to why you think a line would be different, or he's excited to see how a scene goes, even if it's not exactly how it was written on the page. He's a definite collaborator, not just with the actors, but with all the crew. And for that reason, it was a really nice set because every crew member loved him a lot, because he respects all of their work. He also did something really interesting on this job that I think is cool, that he hired a lot of department heads that it was their first time, and he was finding new talent in that way and giving people a chance to show themselves. And like our makeup woman, Carla, and Carlos, our wardrobe, it was their first time heading the departments, and they did such a wonderful job, and he gave them a lot of freedom and space, of course, with his specific vision still in there.
Well, actually, I want to ask you guys kind of in general, because you've both been in some of the really great horror films of the last couple of years, and do you think, because I guess I'm asking for you to agree with me, but I feel like horror films now are offering some of the meatiest roles, and sort of they're really speaking to something of the moment. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I feel like, you know, between It Follows, Don't Breathe, I feel like is something you could read about in the paper. You wouldn't understand the context of it, but it seems like something that could happen. And then, of course, Evil Dead was incredibly scary. So do you think that the horror genre is actually really offering actors and storytellers something that maybe they're not getting in other types of movies right now? What do you guys think?
I don't know. I feel maybe there was a time where horror films kind of disappeared from the map, and we didn't really pay much attention to them. I'm a huge fan of horror films, and I grew up watching horror films, and you know, Wes Craven and all that. Like, that's in The Shining, and so I grew up with that in my childhood, and I think when I was a teenager, I don't know if you can agree with this, I was like kind of let down. I was like, this is all kind of boring. And I think maybe, you know, there's a new wave of a new perspective. You know, David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows, I think is another person who's going to be a master director. He's a genius. And Fede is the same. I mean, I couldn't talk about what I feel about Fede, but I couldn't agree more with these guys. He's masterful at what he does. And he's also a person who's so passionate about what he does that you want to wake up and work for him every morning. And he's always doing something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's just these new generation of directors that are making good films, and we happen to be lucky enough to be part of them. You know what I mean?
I want to ask you in the moment I have left with you guys, what actually, knowing how the sausage gets made in horror movies and stuff like that, what actually scares you when you're a spectator, a viewer of a horror movie? What affects you, just as an audience member? What scares you in a movie?
Suspense, and this movie scared the shit out of me. Excuse my language. Like, I need to know that it's gonna be okay, and so when it's dragged out for a long time, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah. How about you?
You know what? I was surprised because yesterday was my second time seeing it, and again, like, I completely forgot it was Jane and Dylan and Steven there. Like, it was just very. I was feeling for these characters, and it's a combination of everything, you know, the music and everything. It's a really good film, and you're just like in it. I was like grabbing my seat. I was like covering my you know, and I knew what was going to happen. So I don't know. It's just one of those films.
How about you? What gets you in a horror movie? What scares you?
The sense of the presence of unmitigated evil, absolute malevolence. I find that. Because I can't understand it, and I find that That's what scares me. That's what scared me. There aren't a lot of films that do scare me, and I'm certainly not a student of the genre, and I'm not even sure that Don't Breathe is a horror film, frankly. I kind of characterize it as a thriller with kind of a dollop of horror in there as well.
It's a
pretty
hefty dollop at the end.
Is Psycho
It's
a thriller or is
yeah.
Psycho a horror film? I'm not sure. Not to compare it to Psycho, although I just did, didn't I? But you know, just when you're in the presence of absolute malevolence, that's.
He says as he stares me in the eye, making me feel like, is he being mean? I'm pretty nice.
No, you're not. You're malevolent, but not absolutely malevolent.
I got a ways to go. You're both getting there. It's the journey. Now, in the moments that we have left, I do want to ask you real quick, because obviously here at IGN, we're huge geeks and we're huge like comic book stuff. Is there anything kind of maybe you can tell us about your campaign to play Cable and anything kind of going on there? And what is it about the character of Cable that appeals to you? And
I can tell you the extent of my campaign to play Cable. People have been on this Cable thing for a long time, and then when Deadpool came out, it kind of blossomed. And so and I kept reading it, and finally I did one tweet that said, yeah, let's lay some Cable. That's what I did, and that became the campaign. And so since that time, what I have done is when people do fan art of imposing my face onto that Cable body, if I like it, if I think it's cool, I retweet it. So that's what I've done. Now, I have absolutely no clue whether they would ever even consider me for the part. Fact is, it's the same studio as Avatar, and I have commitments over there. Not that should stop them, mind you.
Work
you know, I'm happy to work it out. You know.
Yeah, when do you start on Avatar? Anyway?
Well, you know, Avatar it's started. We've been started for a long time, but we'll really get into high gear around the first of the year.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's been a long process, but that's what it takes, you know.
But so, if the character of Cable came your way, I mean,
yeah.
what would?
Well, I mean, I think I think the fans are right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm the absolute best choice to play Cable. He's, you know, he's gruff, he's rough, he's tough, he's old. I'm old, you know. He's grizzled. Somebody said to me, not recently, he says, "You've got the perfect grizzle factor for Cable," you know. And you know, I'm not very talented, but I'm really grizzled. So there you go. That's how I feel about it.
Jane, I wanted to ask you. I know you probably can't say much about it, but. Did you worked on Twin Peaks, the new Twin Peaks?
I did, and I'm not allowed to say anything.
But what was it like working with David Lynch?
I mean, really, truly a dream come true. He's my favorite ever, and Twin Peaks is like my holy grail. Right. So I feel really lucky that I got to be a part of it.
Guys, when can folks see Don't Breathe? We did this all before.
1, 2, 3. August 26th.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You heard him. Don't Breathe, August 26th. It's an awesome movie. I saw it. So, for all things movies, keep it here on IGN. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.